This isn't another video trying to prove that we will see Vander again in a new shape, a new form, as an antagonist going by the name of Warwick, known from League of Legends, as I'm willing to bet on it and cut my arm off if that doesn't happen. My left arm, I'm left-handed. There's enough proof of that already, and there's plenty of videos wonderfully explaining how and why it's going to make sense. Why there's so much proof out there showing us that Vander will actually return in Season 2 and go by the name of Warwick. However, for the sake of moving forward with this predictions video, let's briefly summarize what's going to happen in Season 2 for certain. Unless they are playing a major trick on us, which is also possible, but for the sake of this video, let's assume they aren't. Warwick, based on the Uncaged Wrath of Zorn, is a former gangster who put down his blade and took up a new name to live a better life, but no matter how hard he tried to move on, he could never escape the sins of his past. Warwick could not recall how he fell into Zinch's grasp, and he even struggled to remember a time before the suffering began. The scientists patiently carved into him, installing pumps and hoses to inject chemicals into his veins, seeking what an alchemist always seeks: transmutation. Zinch would reveal his subject's true nature, the deadly beast hidden within a good man. That very much sounds familiar. It is strongly suggested in Arcane that Vander was not always the peacemaker.
I ran into an old friend of yours. He had some stories. You weren't always the peacekeeper, were you?
In Arcane, he's also called the lapdog.
I hated you, but you kept my respect until you made peace with them. Played lapdog after everything we suffered.
The Hound of the Underground.
Hound of the Underground. I expected something younger.
There is a Warwick hunt theme playing in the background as Vander was captured by Silco. His body shape is similar to the one of Warwick's. It is even hinted visually as Vander died. Jinx imagined him as a wolf. Warwick's League of Legends interactions suggest he knew Vi, that he taught her how to punch.
Who taught you how to punch?
That he previously saw her scared look.
The fear in your eyes, sir. I've seen it before.
Probably the one we saw in episode 3. That she betrayed Zorn.
Zorn needed you.
Possibly by joining the Enforcers. He knew Jinx.
You were there. Let me forget.
As he was surely in the room when this very scene was happening, still in between the worlds, still most definitely suffering being aware of Jinx's pain. And he also told to Zinch that he was given claws before he did it.
Zorn gave me claws long before you did.
You can also hear Warwick's hunt theme and Season 2 announcement. Which strongly suggests that it's going to happen, that we will see Warwick in Season 2. And of course you can see the beast itself in Zinch's lab by the end of Arcane Season 1. So instead of trying to find even more evidence that Vander will in fact become Warwick, let's assume this is a certain thing, and let's see what kind of role Warwick might play in Season 2. Welcome to another Arcane Season 2 prediction video. So the essence of Zinch's experiments was to prove Warwick, in his very core, is in fact evil, that he hasn't changed like he was planning to, that he did not transform into a better man. That is something that us, the viewers, might find very difficult to bear, because at this point of the story there's not a single bad word that can be said about Vander. He was a good father, a good man who gave up on a rebellion, a peacekeeper avoiding conflict at all costs. It was said that Warwick dropped his blades, and very similarly so, Vander gave up on his gloves and chose the path of peace, the path that avoids conflict at all costs. That is what we know. That is where we are in Arcane. We know that Vander died, we know what kind of a man he was. We know that he was trying to pass on his good values to Vi. We know that he was teaching her to be a person that avoids violence. We know that that somewhat failed, but Of course, she is not an evil person. Neither was he. Except in season 2, that is something that I think we'll have to rethink. I'm not saying that it will turn out that Vander was evil, but I'm saying that we will for sure find his second side in season 2. That we will find out much more about his past. It was already strongly suggested that there's more to his character than what we know so far. And I think in that way, we will actually get to see Silco again. What we don't know about is the roots of Vander and Silco's conflict. We know that Vander wanted to stop Silco from going too far, from a possibly too bloody outcome, but we aren't sure if Vander was a nobleman back then, if his motives were pure. In fact, it all points to a direction where we're going to find out Vander wasn't always as good of a man as we believe him to be. And Arcane creators already suggested in that one Reddit thread when they were replying to our questions, they suggested that we will find out more about the very roots of Silco and Vander conflict. Will we ever get to see a younger Silco and Vander pre-betrayal? Any flashbacks to Silco being a good dad to Powder when he first took her in? You will, in fact, in the episode that always makes me cry. Since we will at one point see Vander betraying Silco, and since Arcane is famous for its references, we will possibly also see some form of Vi betraying Jinx parallel. And what is better to serve as such than Vi joining the Enforcers? It is even something that Warwick called out in one of his League of Legends interactions with Vi.
Zone needed you.
By saying Zone needed you, it is strongly hinted that Vi will abandon Zone, and we do know that she already kind of did. There was one specific moment that I already discussed in one of my videos when Vi crosses the bridge, and we know that in Arcane the bridge serves as a metaphor. Characters crossing the bridge, they usually find themselves on the other side. They find out more about the other point of view. It's not just a physical location, it's also a state where they can see more. Caitlyn, for example, she did a deep dive into the streets of Zone, the parts of the city where she has never been before. And like she said herself, she found out so much more about that world thanks to no other than Vi.
Even though we failed her in countless ways, she risked everything to show me what life is really like down there.
Same thing happened to Heimerdinger. He crossed the bridge by boat. Obviously boat is another means of transportation, and in this case it's also a connector between both sides. Heimerdinger traveled to Zone, and Echo showed him another point of view. He was able to see what's out there. Now Vi, she traveled to Piltover. This is also another season 2 spoiler, but we know that Vi will possibly join the Enforcers, maybe because of what Jinx does by the end of season 1. When she does that, she will no longer live in Zone. I am hoping she will move in with Caitlyn, but yeah. When she's part of the Piltover, this is something unacceptable to Jinx. This is something possibly unacceptable to that version of Vander that we might see. After all, the very last thing we promised to Vander was to actually take care of the family, and by leaving Zone, we'd be literally leaving Jinx behind.
Protect the family.
What are you...
Again, it is very difficult to imagine Vander becoming such person, such beast, because Vander was one of the best characters that we have been introduced to in season 1. He was a good father, someone who was worth looking up to, but since we are going to find out more about his evil side, then we'll also see the evil version of him, the one that Zinj will create somehow, the one that he already created. He was also in the room when Silco brought in Jinx to have her fixed.
You were there.
Let me forget, because this must have been awfully difficult to see his own daughter in such a horrible shape, to not be able to react, as you're hanging in there between two worlds. It's extremely interesting because introducing Warwick, who used to be Vander, who is still Vander partially deep down inside, that opens a new path to so many plot lines in season 2, so many interactions that we might see pursued. The flashbacks that I already mentioned, they open a path for them to show us more of Silco. We know that Silco was a fantastic character who will be greatly missed. We know that there will be possibly a new antagonist in season 2, possibly one of the champions. There's already theories going on about that, but we won't be discussing that in this video, maybe another one.
Vander wasn't the man you thought he was.
Flashbacks allow us to continue discussing the parallel that was already strongly hinted in season 1, that there's a bond between Vander's lost brotherhood to Silco and Vi's lost sisterhood to Gainz. Obviously, we were going to pursue all these plots in season 2. All of that still exists. There's Vi and Gainz. Gainz, who decided that Powder is very much gone. Vi, who will have to pick some sort of a side, and because of the rocket by the end of season 1, we know that it's probably not going to be a path back to Zorn. It's going to be one back to the Piltover part of the city, back to where she's going to become an enforcer, which will ultimately mean a strong betrayal in the eyes of Jinx. If you throw in Vander coming back, that complicates things so much. So what we know so far is that Vander, going by the name of Warwick, being a beast, will haunt the streets of Zorn. We know that Vi will possibly encounter him. We know that he will possibly recognize her. It was strongly suggested that he is being haunted by a vision of a girl screaming a name.
Take care about her.
Now the question is, will Vander protect Vi in one way or another? Will he protect Jinx in one way or another? Will he recognize either one of them? What these interactions will look like between them? How will Jinx be involved? Vi and Vander's relationship was pretty straightforward. He was a father figure to her, same as to Jinx, but he was also a sort of a teacher. He was showing her how to be. He was an example for her to follow. Now Powder, she was just a kid when Vander was still alive. It doesn't seem like she has as strong of a bond as Vi did. And of course she loved him, and of course she blames herself for his death. So his return, how will that influence Jinx? Maybe she'll be able to forgive herself, knowing that he isn't actually dead, or maybe she will blame herself even more, knowing that he became something that he possibly hates. Since Vander will hate his new shape, his new form, what will he do about that? We know that he'll probably go after Zinst based on the voice lines.
I remember what you did.
He's not able to forgive him. He knows what he did. He hates what he becomes. I fear that this might lead to him dying again. I'm just not certain if there's a place for him. The way I see it, he might actually sacrifice himself at one point. Maybe trying to save Jinx or trying to save Vi, or both of them. Then again, since he already died, would it be a wise path for the showrunners to kill him off again, since we already suffered through that loss? Now that's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do with him. Maybe it is possible to reverse the transmutation. But then again, I think the way he lives is thanks to the substances, so without them, he would die. Again, Vander or Warwick will be a character uncertain of his own morality, uncertain of who he is. And that just screams great writing to me in season 2. What are they going to do with his character? How will he react? I did a reaction to Warwick trailers just now. This is actually sort of a part 2 to the other video. And in the trailers you can see Warwick hunting criminals. We know that he goes after blood. This was in his description. But will he kill the innocent people? Or is he going to go after the bad guys? Or are they going to not follow that plot at all? Because as I'm talking about that, as I'm seeing all the evidence, it just feels like anyone who's familiar with the League of Legends lore might be able to predict that. And we know that so far they were never as obvious. Still, it very much sounds like something they could go on with. Vi joining the Enforcers. Jinx still being Jinx. Warwick hunting down the criminals in the streets of Zorn. Possibly Caitlyn and Vi as part of the Enforcers going after him. Vi being faced with Vander, with Warwick, recognizing that it's Vander. Him recognizing that it's her. Him having an awakening moment when he realizes he's more than just a beast. Which is also basically a pretty common trope in the stories. Not to search too far, a Beauty and the Beast one. Either way, we will for sure see a struggle, a moral one within Vander, moral one within Vi, within Jinx. And if we see a struggle inside of Warwick, we might even see a parallel of Jinx still remembering who she used to be. Even as he surrendered to the beast, glimpses of his past began to haunt him. He saw a bearded man reflected in the eyes of a beggar as he tore out his throat. The other man looked somber, somehow familiar. There were scars on his arms. Sometimes as he fed in dark eyes on stray gungers, the flash of knives would remind him of an old blade covered in blood. Blood passing from the blade to his hands, from his hands to everything he touched. Sometimes he remembered the girl again, and still there was blood. Warwick struggled to recall a single memory from his past. All he could see was blood, but then he heard a little girl screaming something he couldn't understand. It sounded like a name.
Vander.
He'd already forgotten his. He sensed that was for the best. So where we go from there? Time will tell, but having Vander return in the shape of Warwick, his double morals, him not being certain who he is, Vi joining the Enforcers, which to Jinx might scream betrayal, us being introduced to Silco's past again, to Vander's past, to who he was, finding out that there's an evil side to him, an evil side that will be shown to us in the shape of Warwick. This is absolutely fascinating and absolutely exciting. I'm so looking forward to season 2, obviously for many reasons, which very much include Vi and Caitlyn, but also that. I think this will be a fantastic season. I think given the fact that they will have a character as morally ambiguous as Warwick. It will be heartbreaking to see that part of Vander, but it seems like it will be explained properly. It seems like it will be introduced in the shape of flashbacks that were already mentioned in that Reddit thread. Having Vander return as Warwick enters many new areas for us, many new side plots, his interactions with Vi, Caitlyn, Jinx, his revenge on Zincht, maybe even interactions with Echo. Who knows, maybe what Jinx says in that brief season 2 announcement.
I'm glad it's you. Had to be you.
Maybe it's just a trick because it sounds like she's saying that to either Caitlyn or Vi, but it could also be Warwick. Or they will surprise us by doing something entirely different. Can't be sure, but it's very exciting to be speculating about that. All thanks to certain League of Legends information, trailers and whatnot. It's very exciting to be doing a deep dive into the lore and trying to find more information when it comes to what might happen in season 2. So there's more videos like that to come. Thank you so much for watching and big shout out to my patrons. Stay safe guys. Bye.